your questions. If you could raise your hand, we'll get you a microphone. And before asking your questions, I'll remind you, please state your name and your firm name. Thanks.
Daniel Fu, Calanos Investments. Brian, congratulations. This toy lineup looks like the best in many years. Can I ask how much of this was a determined cultural push within the organization to put out great products versus the timing of what you've been working on just coincided that you had a lot of great things coming together this year? So how much was a cultural shift, hey, let's really get this moving, versus it just happened to all come together this year?
First, I would have to thank all the teams for that great innovation. You got to see just a small sampling of what we're planning at the company, and it's great to have several of our leaders here, but so many innovative people we have brought into the company, and so many innovative people that have been part of our company that we're really giving more leadership roles to, and I think both of those things have an impact on our business. It's also the concerted effort that John spoke to really focus on our franchise and partner brands, our gaming brands, that 85% of our revenues that are so important to us, and to bring a culture of innovation, of fearlessness around the new products that we're putting into the market, and the willingness to not only reinvent those smaller brands, like a Furby, but also to reinvent on a wholesale level big brands like Littlest Pet Shop. And you saw where it's a wholesale reinvention of a brand around new content and all kinds of new immersive experiences. So this is really the mantra as we go forward. I don't think it's coincidental that several of these initiatives arrive here in 2014. I think it has more to do with the culture that we're inculcating through the organization, the mantra that we have back at the offices around the world, what people are trying to create. And it's a very exciting time. And really why I talked about things as being 13 going into 14 as a point of inflection for the company. Question.
Hi, James Hardiman, Longbow Research. Brian, you used the term build probably a dozen times today with respect to the entertainment business. Should we read anything into that as we think about the relative impact of Star Wars and Avengers in 2015 relative to the Transformers benefit that we get this year? Thank you.
Yeah, so James, I think it's a great question. Thanks for asking it. It's not so much that we're talking about an individual brand comparison. We're not trying to put a value judgment on the impact of Transformers versus the impact of a Marvel movie next year. It's really the cumulative impact that we're going to see, we believe we're going to see in our boys business over the next several years. The combination of movies, the combination of television. So yes, we are actually building some considerable meaning into the idea of building over the next several years. As you guys think about modeling, I would encourage you to think of 2014 as a first year in a several-year period that should build over time as we think about this unprecedented era of entertainment. And also some of the timetables since we met back in September had shifted. Late this year, we'll see great new Star Wars television. You'll see some product in the gallery that's all about that Star Wars television and Rebels. It comes late in 2014. The Star Wars movie now comes December 18th, 2015. And for those reasons, in addition, the timing, it's so complementary to the rest of our lineup with Marvel and Transformers and our TV shows, but it does impact the number of years that a movie like Star Wars should impact. It'll impact 15 and going into 16. And so I would just, again, encourage you, as we have done, to model out those building blocks of entertainment over the next several years. Please.
Hi, thank you. Felicia Hendricks, Barclays. Brian, can you help us understand the monetization opportunity from Backflip a bit? Julian talked a bit about how you transition the players from non-revenue games to revenue games. So obviously there's that monetization opportunity, and then there's, I would think, monetization opportunity in the analog games business. So how should we think about it, and where do you think the greatest impact would be?
Yeah, so I'll comment, and then I'll ask Julian to comment on the business as well. We're really excited about the team in Boulder. I was out there and met with the team, who are really, first and foremost, they have a raft of great games that they already have in the market, and why we were attracted to them to begin with. And the second piece is this approach that they've taken. They have these great ubiquitous free games that encourage people to become part of their network. and they do cross-promote to more high-yield games, meaning the opportunity for greater revenues like Dragonville. They have a couple of games coming over the first half of the year into different kinds of markets with Dwarven Den and Plundernauts. And then they have several additional games in development. In addition to that, we do see this opportunity, and we've talked about it, the opportunity to have them take hold of Hasbro brands and bring them to life in mobile gaming, and then to connect that digital and analog experience you're seeing in so many of our brands. I think that they will help us to be a catalyst and to accelerate that effort. Julian, you want to comment on your business plan?
Yeah, just to echo some of Brian's commentary there. Oh, can you hear that?
Yeah.
Can you hear? Okay, good. So since July, we've been integrating with the teams in Pawtucket a little bit, figuring out what their brand calendars look like, what their digital plans are, how they're coming to mobile, how they're thinking about extending their brands. We have a finite amount of capacity in Boulder with just a little more than 100 people. We had a full product line. A lot of that product line is coming to market in the first part of this year, in a little bit in the second half. But I think on the back half of that, you'll start to see we're going to be bringing more Hasbro brands to market. I don't think we're going to release a strict calendar of dates yet as to when that'll be, but I think over the course of the next few quarters, you'll see some of that emerging, and I think Brian and Deb will both speak to that in a little more detail in upcoming talks. I think.
Sure. Yeah, we'll give you more updates as we go. But, clearly it's that threefold initiative that they have. Current brands they have, they're great. New original brands that they're creating, which we think are great opportunities for the company at large. And then Hasbro brands, both in digital as well, crossing digital and analog, much like we've done with Magic the Gathering. Other questions? Please. JT.
Hi, John Taylor with Arcadia. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the programming side of things. You made a big investment in Hasbro Studios and in the Hub over the last few years. So maybe give us a sense of any major things that we ought to look forward to related to the Hub in the U.S. here. And then talk about how you can leverage this big investment you've made in programming. You got 1,000 half hours already. It seems like the investment in that is stabilizing, so we ought to be able to get some leverage. And, you hit 400 in related sales. I haven't heard a goal sort of looking forward on that, so maybe update us on kind of what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, good. Thank you. The first part of the question is, we talked to you back in fall, October 2010, about this 3 to 5 year time horizon for the Hub, where it would get its traction, it would begin to nourish a particular audience, and we'd really start to see what the Hub was made of. And in fact, this past October, we're just at 3 years. So we're just inside that window, and we've indicated to you that the Hub's plan is to be profitable this year. So they've made great progress on the profitability side and on the growth side. 2013 was the highest ratings year for the Hub. We still see the opportunity and headroom for the Hub over the next several years. Margaret and her team are doing a great job, and of course our shows and Hasbro Studio shows, led by Steve Davis, who's here with us today, those shows are the highest rated shows on the network, but they're also buying other great branded shows from R.L. Stine and other great brands, and they found some interesting genres that really work for that network. But in addition, we are putting those shows out around the world on broadcast networks and cable channels, and also streaming on all kinds of platforms. So we're completely agnostic about where that content goes over time. Obviously, the content gets shorter as it goes online because short form tends to work better than long form. But we're going to put that content everywhere. You've seen some early indications with early deals with Netflix and other streaming providers of how that can impact our profitability. And we believe over the long term, content is so important, not only to drive those merchandise sales, but you see how it completes that going to love, going to acquire cycle within our brands and our brand plan. So I think that obviously for us, that's a big component as we go forward. I don't remember you had another part of the question. Oh, yeah. So I'll remind you back at that time, David Hargraves had said several $100 million, and at that time we used a model of $300 million as a kind of for instance. We're now at $400 million. We're not yet ready to update you on what that might be in the future, but clearly we've already surpassed our kind of early or midterm goal, and we'll update you as we go further. But what we are seeing in the emerging markets, clearly that growth in the emerging markets is indicative of the fact that our content is there in those markets. And I've said this before, but I think it's really remarkable. As I travel around the world, as our teams are activating our brands in Russia, China, Brazil, Colombia, Korea, to get off a plane and see Hasbro as a branded play company so fundamentally entrenched with consumers in that way and audiences in that way, almost more so than we get to enjoy here in the United States. You know, I think that's what this future is about, and that's what this whole branded play blueprint really is about.
Brian?
Yep.
JT, if I could just add one thing. You tour the showroom downstairs. The other thing we're doing much better today is integrating content and product launches together. So Samantha talked about Littlest Pet Shop and how that is so integrated, content and product. With My Little Pony, our Rainbow Power theme this year, kids will see it on all screens, and then they'll see it at retail. And with Transformers Rescue Bots, with Season 4 coming later this year, kids will see it on screen and at retail. So there's a real cohesion there as a result of our teams working together.
Yeah, John, why don't you just join us up on stage and maybe some other questions about brands. Sure. Michael.
Thanks. Mike Kelter, Goldman Sachs. I wanted to ask Deb actually about the margin commentary you gave, because if we take everything for face value, it actually suggests your profit margins might be down in 2014 with deleverage on various items from depreciation expense, stock comp, royalties. And the only thing that you said would be in the right direction this year is going to be gross margins. So my question is, can gross margins be up enough to offset all of that, or should we be prepared that margins may actually be down despite the revenue growth?
Well, what we tried to highlight, because we get asked questions all the time, will we see $100 million coming out of your expenses straight off from 2011? And what we wanted to try to explain today is that there are some things that offset those underlying cost savings that we're getting from our actions. And I tried to highlight kind of by area, because you'll always ask me by line item where you think that might come as well. And if you don't, I know Tim will. So, but by area, what are some of the things offsetting that? But that being said, we're very excited about this year. You've seen the wonderful brand extensions that we have coming out, the great new slate of entertainment we've talked about, 2014 building and beyond. Those entertainment-based properties do tend to command a higher gross margin. They may have a bit of a higher royalty, which, again, we think is going to be about the 5-year average this year. But they do have a higher gross margin, and we've been building our business and gaining efficiencies within that so that over time you may have some blips in some of these lines, but we continue to expect, as we stated earlier, our medium-term goal is to grow operating profit faster than revenue. Yeah. So all of those things combined lead us to believe in and restate that medium-term objective.
Yeah, the other thing that's important is as we grow our games business, they tend to enjoy higher operating margins. As we grow our franchise brands, they tend to enjoy higher operating margin. As we grow entertainment licensing, that has a much higher gross margin than the rest of our business, as you know, and nearly double the operating profit margin of the underlying toy and game business. And then the final point is, as we get beyond break even in these emerging markets, we're now enjoying 10.1% operating profit margin. In the short term, it still represents a bit of a drag on operating margin because it's below company average. But over the next several years, as it gets toward company average and that growth rate continues, then you start to see how that also helps to contribute to growth in operating profit margin. I think we're just trying to give you broad guidance to make sure as you model, as you think about our business, that you understand the puts and takes and that everything isn't just all upside.
And then another question on a different topic, going to Transformers as we look to this year, obviously one of the biggest drivers you have. The product sales with the third movie were down 15+% from the second movie. It sounds like you believe much of that was because of the lack of new characters. And so I guess the question is, how confident are you that adding these new characters, both human and Transformer characters, is going to turn that back around? And how do you disaggregate that character point versus maybe fatigue by the time you get to a